Presentation of dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family's legacy of building the great state of Idaho.
It's been called hauntingly beautiful, nothing short of brilliant, and the written equivalent of a Botticelli painting. Hi, I'm Marcia Franklin. Coming up next on Dialogue, I talk with Boise author Anthony Doerr about his latest novel, All the Light We Cannot See. The book, which took 10 years to write, has received glowing reviews and hit the bestsellers list the first week it was out. That's Dialogue, conversations that matter. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to Dialogue. I'm Marcia Franklin. It all started with an observation on a train. 10 years and thousands of hours later, that observation had been transformed into a 530-page book, and one that's generated quite a buzz at that. It's called All the Light We Cannot See, and was penned by Boise author Anthony Doerr. The book, which debuted at number 10 on the New York Times bestsellers list, is an intimate look at the parallel lives of two European children in World War II, children whose mutual fates are ultimately intertwined. It's the fifth work by Doerr, whose other books include the short story compilations The Shell Collector and Memory Wall, a memoir called 4 Seasons in Rome, and a novel titled About Grace. Doerr and his works have garnered more accolades than I have time to enumerate here, but a short list would include 4 O. Henry Prizes, 3 Pushcarts, the prestigious Story Prize, the National Magazine Award, and the Rome Prize. And fresh off the first leg of his national book tour, Anthony Doerr joins me in the studio to talk about All the Light We Cannot See. Welcome.
Thanks, Marcia.
Thanks
fun
for
to be back.
Yeah, it's your fourth time, I believe, on Dialogue. I think you've set the record, which is fine with me. It's always great to have you here. Wow. In addition to the reviews that I mentioned in the introduction, the Washington Post reviewer said, "I'm not sure I will read a better novel this year." It's, as I mentioned, in the top 10 on the New York Times bestseller list. I looked up Amazon.com. It's third on the wish list for people who want books purchased for them. Pretty heady stuff.
Yeah, thanks. It's overwhelming and exciting. You know, it's still just dawning on me that the book is done and that I can't make changes to it. I go give readings. I'm like, oh, maybe I could fix this sentence. I'm like, oh, it's too late. Can't make changes anymore.
Yeah. Well, is it a surprise for you, or I guess?
A little bit. My publisher was really excited about it. My wife kept warning me, like, this is, you know, there's more compelling narrative than your previous books, and it feels maybe slightly more commercial. But yeah, I try to protect myself against any commercial hopes, you know. You just try to keep making new work.
Yeah, your wife was warning you that it was commercial?
Yeah, right.
You mean?
Well, she was like, we need to prepare ourselves
Gotcha.
for our lives to change a little bit. And,
Gotcha.
You know, it's my email tends to overwhelm me already, and so now every time I check my email, I have 12 new ones. That's good. It's great. It's much better than having nobody read your work, you know.
I think that's why you have an agent or something, you know, to
Yes,
take care of all that for you.
You got it.
You know, this book, as I mentioned, took 10 years to write, the same age as your children are, your twin boys. And in fact, that Rome Prize that I mentioned, you started work on this novel when you were in Europe on that Rome Prize.
That's
so
right.
The accolades must be even more sweet because of how much effort and time you put into this.
That's right, yeah. That train ride you mentioned was, left Boise and lived in Princeton, New Jersey for a year and took the train up to New York City, and the boys had just been born, and I was going up to New York to visit my publisher and heard a man complaining about the reception on his cell phone, and that's the night that title occurred to me, All the Light We Cannot See. I wanted to write about electromagnetic waves and all this invisible light that carries, you know, messages between human beings. I just felt like we had forgotten what a magical thing that was. And then, yeah, 4 months later, we were in Rome, Italy for a year, and I was trying to understand how to put this book together, even then, 10 years ago.
So let's back up just a little bit. As you mentioned the observation on the train that I alluded to in the introduction. So this man was annoyed because his phone call dropped. And you were looking at this and thinking something entirely different.
Right. First, I was worried for my safety. He got quite angry. He was talking about The Matrix, the movie The Matrix, on his telephone. And yeah, we're going underground into Penn Station, and his cell phone dropped, you know, there's steel and concrete over us. And I was thinking, you know, how can we ever get to the place where we assume that this technology should work? You know, we're traveling 40 miles an hour underground. And I do the same thing, you know. I get emails from somebody in London instantaneously, and I'm up on in the foothills on my bike, you know. It's incredible. So I just wanted to bring the reader, originally the idea was to bring the reader to a place to hear the voice of a stranger, to hear the voice of Marcia in your head, somebody you maybe never met, you know, maybe is 2,000 miles away. To hear that voice is a miracle. And for the bulk of the history of humanity, we couldn't do that. You had to see the person who was talking to you. You know, and now suddenly we take it for granted. Now my wife and kids go out of town and this house feels too quiet, and I turn on the television just to hear the voices of strangers, you know.
So in this instance, the voices of strangers was over the radio, and during World War II. So you have one character, these characters came to you also, and one was a German boy who fixes radios, and the other was a French girl who learns how to operate a radio.
Yeah,
and so the electromagnetism in this case is in the form of a radio, which you felt was very important in World War II.
You got it. Originally, for maybe the first year while I was in Rome, just thinking about different strategies for the book, all I knew is I wanted to have a blind girl reading a story over a radio to a boy. And I figured he would be close, but I didn't know exactly what the circumstances of, you know, their relationship would be. I didn't know why she was blind. I didn't know what story it would be. So it wasn't until a year later that I was in France on book tour. I was in the seaside town of Saint-Malo in Brittany. It's this beautiful walled city, old city where corsairs, state-sanctioned pirates used to live, and they would do raids out in the English Channel. The waters are turquoise. It snows there. It's just an amazing, beautiful place. You feel like you're in a fairy tale when you walk these old walls. And we had one day off while I was there, and I was walking with my French editor along the ramparts that encircle the town, and I said, you know, it's amazing to me how old everything is here. You know, we don't have houses this old in Idaho. And he said, well, you'd be surprised. Almost every building in the city was destroyed at the end of World War II in 1944 by American bombs. So first I was dazzled that a city could be recreated so painstakingly that a foolish tourist like me couldn't even tell. And then second, I thought, okay, this is where I'm going to set the story. This is where I'll have the boy somehow trapped, really somehow needing this radio transmission as a kind of lifeline. And I loved Jules Verne as a kid, so I thought, what if I have the girl read him a Jules Verne novel? And I settled on 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Now these two individuals, and I won't give anything away, but these two children who, as I said in the introduction, their lives are intertwined, mostly because of this radio, but also because of the war. They don't meet but just for a brief moment way far into the book. And there's no traditional love story in this novel. You know, many books almost hinge on that kind of tension, you know. But it is ultimately about love, isn't it, this book?
It is. A great risk of the novel, writing it, was that I worried a reader wouldn't be willing to wait this long for these two trajectories. They start out pretty far apart, and they lean very slightly toward each other, and they don't intersect until, you know, the book is 500 pages long, and you're into the 400s before they finally intersect. And the chapters are quite short, and it just goes between the blind French girl, Marie, and the German boy, Werner. And it just kind of slowly, you watch them, and I hope the anticipation of watching them, trying to anticipate how they'll intersect, keeps you interested. So yes, you could define it as a romance or a love story, but it's very much an unusual one.
Not a love story, but about love.
It is about love, certainly for me. I mean, Marie, the way she goes blind and her father takes care of her. She goes blind when she's 6, and her father, who is the locksmith at the Natural History Museum in Paris, he really is, I hope, comes across as a loving father and really challenges her to become self-sufficient in lots of different ways. And so I feel like that love from her father. And then Werner is an orphan with a sister, and he has quite a tight bond with her, even though he ends up leaving her. And I feel like it's the love between those two families, and then ultimately maybe Werner does feel a love for Marie as well towards the end of the book.
Well, it's also about moral choice, and it's about the moral choices that are forced upon people during wartime that they may be able to avoid in peacetime. And you mentioned the relationship between these two children, the German boy Werner and his sister Jutta. And he has been accepted into a very elite Nazi school. He looks the part, and he's able to fix these radios, as we talked about. He's got a good mathematical head. So he's been accepted, and she is quite disturbed about that. I'd like you to read just briefly from an interchange that the two of them had that illustrates, I think, this theme of both love and moral choice.
Yes, just a little context that he has repaired a wireless for them that can receive foreign broadcasts, and around 37 and 38 in Germany it became illegal to listen to foreign transmissions, and Werner recently caught his sister doing that. At that point it's punishable by hard labor. Later it becomes punishable by death just to listen to foreign radio stations. It's unfathomable to us now with the internet. So anyway, he's destroyed this radio in a sense to try to protect his sister, but it really feels like a betrayal to her, and in some ways to him too. All right, so this is
And he's
Werner.
about to leave too
He's
for this
about to
elite
leave
school.
to school. I know you're angry. You'll become just like Hans and Heribert. I won't. Spend enough time with boys like that and you will. So you want me to stay, go down in the mines? They watch a bicyclist far down the path. Jutta clamps her hands in her armpits. You know what I used to listen to on our radio before you ruined it? Hush, Jutta, please. Broadcasts from Paris. They'd say the opposite of everything Deutschlandsender says. They'd say we were devils, that we were committing atrocities. Do you know what atrocities means? Please, Jutta. Is it right, Jutta says, to do something only because everyone else is doing it? Doubts slipping in like eels. Werner shoves them back. Jutta is barely 12 years old, still a child. I'll write you letters every week, twice a week if I can. You don't have to show them to Frau Elena if you don't want to. Jutta shuts her eyes. I'll stop there.
So that line that she says, is it right to do something just because everyone is doing it? Applicable nowadays, of course.
Of course. I think about it in many different ways. I mean, obviously, the Holocaust is such a higher level of moral concern, but I think about it in terms of global warming and all the ways I participate in things that I probably shouldn't. You know, I've been flying on airplanes these past weeks, and I think if I truly cared about the environment and really was trying to do the right thing, I would decline to go on book tour, for example, or I would not ever drink a single sip of water out of a plastic bottle or something, So, it's a different level of
Sure, because he's
evil.
going to a school where they're going to teach them how to kill people.
Yes, and teach them eugenics and all kinds of incredibly awful things. It's not just military skills. They're teaching them racism and genocide.
But it's his way out.
Yes, Werner, in this town where he grows up, all the boys who, once they turn 15, they have to go work in the mines. So he really has no choice. His father has died in the mine, and he feels like fixing this radio for this official, this party official, has given him a ticket out of a fate that felt like an utter entrapment to him. Unfortunately, it doesn't enlarge in his life necessarily. He gets to see a few more places, but he goes to these schools, which are very real places, where they did teach proper engineering. They taught good science in some ways, but then an hour later they're teaching just horrific things to these children.
And the descriptions you have in there are violent. And I'm wondering, as you researched this, and this is not the first time you've written about World War II. You have a very poignant story in Memory Wall about girls on a transport train that's, hit me hard when I read it. Researching this, tell me what that does.
Part of the reason the book took me so long was just the psychological damage that reading so many eyewitness accounts and just narratives about the Holocaust. For me, I knew I could never write anything that could begin to approach the narratives of survivors. And I wanted so badly to tell a story about World War II that didn't feel like all the other stories that people had read about the war. So I felt like I would try to not subvert the Holocaust, but let it just live underneath the sentences and trust our public schools to have done a good enough job that readers will know that it's there and will understand what's happening in Werner's neighborhood and what's happening all around the school where he is, and yet hopefully complicate themselves enough because they might find themselves empathizing with little Werner the whole way, and in fact maybe be cheering for him as he starts. Once he leaves this school, he goes into a unit that pursues illegal and illicit radio broadcasts, basically.
Like the young child, Marie Laure, who we haven't talked too much about, is engaged in. Her uncle
is engaged in that.
So you were trying to see if the reader could have some empathy for a Nazi.
That's kind of it, right?
You were inspired in part by a photo that you saw, right?
That's right, Marcia.
Of a teenager who was inconsolate, desolate after the war was over and the Germans had lost. He was German. He'd been, what, in the Luftwaffe? Or?
Yeah, his name was Hans Georg Henke, and there's a photo. I wasn't used to empathizing at all with German citizens. I thought, well, everybody was complicit, and as I got older, you start to think, well, would I have made proper choices if I had grown up in that time? I'm not sure if I would have been a hero and been able to put 10 children in my basement or risk my own life, risk my family's life. So yeah, I saw this photograph. It was a very moving photograph from 45 of this boy who's 15 at the time, and his mother has died recently. His father died in 38, and he had to join the Air Force and the anti-air squads to support himself. There were these photos in Life magazine, and he's weeping, and you can see his uniform's too big. You just get a sense that he's put into a dead man's uniform, and
ultimately these are children that are forced to do
kids.
These things. Yeah. Marie Laure, the young girl in the attic, ultimately in Saint-Malo, why is she blind?
I'm getting that question a lot. I have a fascination with sentences that rely upon other senses than sight. I feel like often I'm relying too much on visual medium when I'm telling stories. So early in my very first book, The Shell Collector, I challenged myself to write about a protagonist.
Blind protagonist in that book as well.
And that's only about 20 pages, and I found it very challenging. And here I took on the project of maybe 250 pages from Marie's perspective. But ultimately, I fell in love with it. It's really fun to try to rely on sound and smell, and especially the tactile nature of the world to try to deliver a reader into this, to transport the reader into her life. And the narrator's third person, so occasionally if I need to describe something, I can move outside of her.
And even scarier for her to be trapped because she can't see.
Yeah,
she can't see her way out.
How vulnerable she is. When I stood in that town 9 years ago and tried to imagine this bombardment and started looking at the photographs of it, you try to think, well, what did disabled people do? What did seniors do in this situation? What would a blind child be feeling and hearing? You hear that in bombardments, it's not just the tremors, it's the sound. The sound is like a weapon in itself.
Exactly. And she's in an attic, which of course made me think of Anne Frank.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah, she's trapped in the attic where this transmitter is that her uncle has built.
One of the characters, Frederick, who is a young German boy who does not capitulate, I guess you might say, or has a strong sense of himself, is also a dreamer.
He is, yeah.
Somebody might say a little light in the head, or he's an intellectual kid, and he's at this school. That character is one of your favorites, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he comes out of myself and maybe my sons as well, and I think this is a boy who you see at schools now, and he would have a hard time in 2014 in a school in the United States. He loves birds, and he's never ties his shoes, and he's kind of sloppy, and he's just a dreamer. And yet, you imagine what was happening to children like that in Nazi Germany.
Right.
But
ultimately, he is strong. He's a strong kid. He's not going to be pushed around.
Ultimately, he makes the decision to not go with everybody else, to say, is it right to go, to do something because everybody else is doing it? He says, no, it's right to make your own decisions about what you should do in life. And Werner, at least at that point in the novel, is not strong enough to make that decision.
I thought about bullying, too, when I read this. Is it okay to go along with everything just because everybody else is? I mean, there's so many ways that people can read Juta's question to her, too. Because it was ordinary people who enabled the Holocaust to succeed for the time that it did. By making the choices.
And this school was built to ferret out weakness. That's the whole idea. Like, they talk about the cadets as a core, and how do you make the body of the cadets stronger? And so the whole idea is just to winnow out all these poor kids who might think differently, might actually ultimately be a lot stronger.
Yeah, and Marie Laure, she's blind, but she's very, very strong as well. And there's a lot of suspense in this book, too. We haven't talked about it, but there's a search for a missing gemstone that involves the young girl, and that emanates from also another real fact, which is that during this time period, treasures from the Louvre and other museums were secreted away and stashed away so that hopefully the Nazis wouldn't get them. Your research into this book is just incredible. I think I heard you say that some paragraphs might have had 30 hours of research
Sure.
involved in them,
Sure.
going through museums and everything. You have shells are in this book as well, sea creatures, which they are in other books, very detailed. So much research. That's important to you to get it right, isn't it?
It is. I go to books to learn. I mean, I love to escape and be transported, but the things that ultimately stay alive in my head after I finish them are ones where I learn as well. And that doesn't mean it can't be a thriller or it can't be engaging in terms of narrative. But I like to learn as I read, and not just learn scientific facts. I like to learn about what it's like to be a child in Afghanistan and the kite runner or something, or what it's like to sail the South Seas in search of whales like in Moby Dick. You know, I love when my students get bored when Melville goes into how harpoons are made or how you make melt down blubber into oil. I love those parts of Moby Dick. I think it's fascinating, you know.
Did these characters come into your head? I mean, were they real for you at some point?
Yes, it takes a while. I'm always skeptical of writers who say, "Oh, I just let my characters, talk to me, and I transcribe what they say."
Channeling.
Right, channeling. That feels a little new agey to me. For me, the characters take years to figure out exactly what's in their hearts, who they are, who their parents were. Literal things like what do their rooms look like, what are in their pockets. That's the kind of research that you have to do, whether you're writing something in 2014 or in 1940 or 1750. You have to start to dream out. It's as much looking through books and photographs as it is just dreaming. What are these people's lives? And
when you write about a blind person, do you lose your sense of sight?
Sometimes, yeah, you get to be like kind of a character actor. And in the best days, when the writing's going well, like 1 in 8, you're sitting there at your desk and writing Marie's sections or going through them, and then you switch to Werner and you're like, oh yeah, I can see for this character now. I forgot that I'm able to see now.
Oh, interesting. You
Yeah.
temporarily go blind.
Yeah.
Real briefly, the structure, it's like 187
Yeah,
little
good,
mini
Marcia.
chapters or bites, I thought that was great.
Oh, good.
It
Thanks.
really moved along. It's a heavy topic, but that gave you some space to deal with
little
it.
pocket chapters or chapterettes. They're really, the longest maybe is 5 pages, and often they're just 1 page. And I part of it's insecurity. I'd worry, I can't stay with Werner too long because I want the reader to keep Marie in her head also. But part of it is I like to refine and polish these little bits, and so if my kids had swim lessons and I only had 3 hours to work, I could get through one of these chapters and try to make it as strong as I could, at least revise it twice before I had to leave.
It's interesting because before we've talked on the show about how your short stories are really long, they're novellas.
Right.
And then in this instance, your novel,
Right.
you have bite-sized chapters. So you're just experimenting with the form,
No
which
question.
is great. How did you keep going over 10 years? I know you had other books that kept you busy as well. You weren't just mulling on this for 10 years straight. But what kept you going? Because there had to have been some times where you're just, God.
Yes. It's important to keep projects on life support. I think no matter what art you're working in, whether it's a giant painting or a mosaic or quilts, I think if you leave it for too long, sometimes even over Thanksgiving, if we take a whole week off as a family, the paint in this project started to dry a little bit. So even though I would be writing short stories or magazine pieces, I would often, just spend 10 or 15 minutes a day on this book just to kind of keep the paint wet. After a certain point, it accumulates so much inertia that you can't give it up. You owe it to yourself and to your family to figure out how to solve these problems you've made for yourself. I mean, it's fun. When you're rested, it's fun. I've got these 180 chapters laid out on the floor, and I'm trying to piece them together and make sense of this A-B structure that I built for myself. And
Between the two characters, back and forth.
Yeah. So it's fun. I think it's puzzle making in a lot of ways. And I think a reader can sense when a writer is struggling. You can tell when emails are boring for the writer to write. As a reader, they're painful. So it's important to find joy in your work. If you're having fun, your reader will have fun also.
And you put joy into this book too. I mean, that's important for you, isn't it? The little things in life that you touch on that are joyful, even in the time of war.
Yes. I think Marie's relationship with her uncle Etienne's housekeeper, Madame Manec, a lot of that for me was about joy. Even though Madame Manec is an older woman, she's having a lot of struggles in her health, they have a real relationship. She shows her the sea for the first time, and they really, those moments, especially in a novel about so many bleak things, it's important to shine the light as brightly as you can. These two candles burning in the darkness of the war.
So you never gave up, it sounds like.
That's probably a whitewash, though. There were days when it's hard. There's days when you're like, I don't know if I can do this.
Well, ultimately, though, I know it's important for you to honor the memory of World War II. As I said, it's been in other books that we're losing people, and we will lose people. Ultimately, there will be people who don't remember it at all. And so, that seems motivation alone to keep going.
No question. Yeah. Not to joke around. At the very end of the novel, it was really important for me to bring the novel into the present. And the novel ends in 2014. And I won't give anything away to say that there's just a sentence in there that says, every day the world loses people for whom the war is memory. And I think that's particularly true right now, with the anniversary of D-Day coming, and I feel like we are, in 10 more years, we'll have very, very few people left for whom World War II is memory, and then it becomes this very dangerous thing that it can become something, the History Channel, video games, politicians in particular are apt to present the war as this very black and white narrative where all the Germans were evil and all the Americans were heroes. And I think it's important to just look at individual stories and suggest there's no usual experience of this war. Everybody was making decisions, trying to get by. Some people were making terrible decisions and some were making good ones, but it's too simplistic to suggest there's all these types. There were the evil Nazis and the brave resistance heroes, and so I think it's important to keep trying to tell stories responsibly about individuals during the war.
And what's coming up for you? What's next on the horizon?
A bunch of different things. I think I have 3 projects. One about the Panama Canal, and one about the fur trade in Idaho, and one about Byzantium, and in the 13th and 14th centuries, and about the fall of the great walls of Constantinople. And so I don't know exactly which one of those.
That's a lot of different topics.
Yes.
Almost like a Renaissance person,
You just kind of keep working. You never know what's going to work until you make it. So you have to kind of make it, at least a skeleton framework of it. And then if it falls apart and you're only 6 months in, that's okay. It's when you're 6 years in that you're like, this can't fall apart anymore.
Well, you've got a good team behind you, your wife, your kids, your publishers that believe in you, and certainly the reading public will look forward to your next work.
Thanks, Marcia.
Congratulations, and best to you on the continued book tour. Eventually you'll get to Europe, which will be really interesting to see how the book is received. And you'll go back to Saint-Malo and walk those ramparts.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm going to go to the festival in June of 2015. There's a literary festival there in Saint-Malo, so it'll be very interesting to bring this book there.
Well, thanks for taking some time to talk with me and our viewers. I really appreciate it. You've been listening to Anthony Doerr. He's a Boise author whose latest book, All the Light We Cannot See, has hit the bestseller list. We look forward to more. Thanks for tuning in to Dialogue. I'm Marcia Franklin.
Presentation of Dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family's legacy of building the great state of Idaho.